students, this is Ms. Cave with a lesson on solving equations. So you should have in front of you two sheets, one that has solving equations. We're going to actually put this together in class tomorrow. So right now you're just going to have your sheets, and you have equations involving addition, and you also have a sheet that says one-step multiplication and division at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and start with a beginning. So we're going to take where it says solving equations. We're going to fold this sheet just like this. So right now we just need this first sheet, and you're folding it like so. All right, so you just have this, and we're going to look at solving some addition equations. You've seen these models when you've worked on your IXL, and now we're going to apply the models to learn how to, or review from 6th grade, how to solve one-step equations. So we're going to flip this open, and we're going to start with the first equation, which says y plus 6 is equal to 9. So what we're going to do before we start actually solving them with just the numbers, we're going to review the models. So we'll say that y plus 6 is equal to 9. So I'm going to say that the triangle is equal to y, and that a box is equal to 1, and then if I shade in a box, it's equal to -1. So these should look familiar to you from the models that you guys did on IXL. So this is triangle, and right now we're just using a positive y, so we don't need a -1. So for this model, I'm going to put 1y on the right, and then 6 squares to show y increased by 6, and then I'm going to use my equal sign, and on the other side I'm going to have 9. So I'm going to draw 9 boxes. Do this along with me. Okay, and now we're going to talk about what we want to do when we solve an equation. When we solve an equation, one thing to do is put a line. But what we're trying to do is to isolate the variable. The variable in this case is the triangle. We're trying to get the triangle by itself to find the value of y. So what I would do here is I would get rid of these 6 positives. And the way I would do that for this is I'm going to just subtract 6 from both sides. So I'm going to take 6 away from the left side, and I'm also going to take 6 away from the right side. Okay? And so once I do that, my next step, what I have is triangle. I don't have these anymore. They're gone. And what do I have left on the right side? I have 3. Okay, so again, that's a review how you can solve these problems with a model. So your answer would be y is equal to 3. Okay, we're going to go from the model and start just using the numbers. And then when we get back to two-step equations, we will go back to models. So for number 2, we have x plus 3 equals 1. I'm going to put a line down here to separate the expression on the left to the solution of 1 on the right. And again, my goal is to get my variable by itself. So I'm going to put a box around my variable. That's what I'm trying to isolate. And I have x plus 3 equals 1. So what I'm going to want to do here to get x by itself is do the inverse operation of adding 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And you need to show it on both sides when you solve an equation. So that was my first step. It's a one-step equation. The inverse of adding is subtracting. So what happens here is 3 minus 3 is 0. So this is going to cancel out. And then what I have left on the left side is x. And x is equal to 1 minus 3. And 1 minus 3 is -2. Now, one of the things that I'm going to want to do when I'm solving equations is to check my solution. So in order to check my solution, I'm going to put the value of x into the equation to see if it's true. So I'm going to, at the bottom, I'm going to do a check. You guys are doing this along with me. My check is x plus 3 is equal to 1. I'm going to put in the value I got for x and substitute it in here. So I'm going to check to see if negative 2 plus 3 is equal to 1. And if I add negative 2 and 3, and if you do that on your calculator, or you can do that mentally, negative 2 plus 3 is what? 1. That's right. So because I got my check, I'm going to put a check right there to show that my solution is correct. This is really important when our equations start getting more difficult, so that we can check our work and go back and make any adjustments that we need to. Now let's look at number 3. Number 3 is a little different because now you have the variable on the right, but it doesn't matter. You do the same thing whether it's on the right or the left. You put a line down the middle of the equation to separate the two sides. I'm putting a box around my variable, which is a, and I'm trying to get a by itself. So to get a by itself, what do I need to get rid of? The plus what? Plus 4. So how do I get rid of adding 4? What's the opposite of adding 4? Subtracting 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 from this side. But when I solve equations, I need to keep them balanced. Right now it's unbalanced. Whatever I do to one side, I need to do the same to the other. And so now on the right side, I'm going to continue working over here. My plus 4 minus 4, that's going to cancel out. I'm left with a. And then I simply compute negative 3 minus 4. This is the same thing as negative 3 plus negative 4 or negative 3 minus 4. I put that in my calculator. What would I get? Negative 7. Good. So that's my answer. Negative 7 is A. Now what's my next thing? What do I need to do? I need to do a check. So I'm going to write my equation, which is negative 3 equals A plus 4. I'm going to substitute that negative 7 in for A. Negative 3 equals negative 7 plus 4. And then I'm just going to add negative 7 and 4. Negative 7 and 4, if I find the sum of negative 7 and 4, it's negative 3. And negative 3 is equal to negative 3, so it checks. All right, let's do one more addition. This last one, I have my variable on my left again, like the first one. I'm going to draw my line, and I'm going to show what I'm trying to get rid of, my variable. And I have 14 plus m is equal to 20. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get rid of this positive 14. It's a positive 14 here. So to get rid of a positive, I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides to keep it balanced. When I do that, the 14 goes away because I took it away from the left. And I also took it away from the right. What I have left over here is my variable. And then 20 minus 14 is 6. Yep, now we're going to check it. I'm going to rewrite my equation. I'm going to go ahead and just put it in because I know what the equation is. Now you guys see how we got it. 14 plus 6 is 20. 14 plus 6 is 20. 20 is equal to 20. So it checks. All right. If you guys need to pause the video at any time to catch up, this might be a good time to do that. Let's look at number 5. Now notice now we are going from words to finding the number. So we're actually going to write an equation from words. So this is what we were just doing with expressions. The sum is addition, and the sum of a number, I don't know what it is, and 3. And then this time the word is is. Is means equals negative 2. So we've put the symbols together so that we can write our equation. So I'm finding the sum of a number and 3. So my equation is n plus 3. And the sentence tells us that it is negative 2, which is equals to negative 2. So from here, we're going to put a box around our variable. Our variable is n. Put a line down. I want to isolate n, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. These are inverse operations. I'm adding the inverse of -3 to +3. This cancels out. I have n left. And -2 minus 3 is what? -5. Good. And so now my check, I'm going to do my check over here. And I'm going to put in the number n, -5 plus 3 equals -2. -5 plus 3 is -2. -2 is equal to -2, so it checks. All right, so we've now done 5 equations involving addition. You guys are going to do some practice with addition and subtraction equations today after we watch the video. So now I need you to grab your sheets, and we're going to find on your sheet where it says equations involving subtraction. So we're going to take the other sheet, the sheet that has the 1-step plus and minus on the bottom. Okay, and it has equations involving subtraction. So I want you guys to find this, help each other find this if you need to. So we're going to go with these equations involving subtraction. Okay, now that everybody has it, we're going to model the first one just like we modeled the last. We're going to start with a model. So x, we're going to say that the triangle is equal to x, and a cube or a square is equal to 1, and then a shaded in square is equal to -1. So we're going to start out by modeling this equation, x minus 2 equals 1. So I'm going to use a different color. So I have x over here, and I have -2. So since it's -2, I can't put +1. I have to put 2 negatives here, because subtracting 2 is just like adding 2 negatives. So I'm going to put in 2 shaded squares on that side. On the other side, I have a +1, so I'm going to have an unshaded square. Now, what I'm going to want to do in my next step is I'm going to want to isolate my variable. So what would I add to a +2 to get rid of it? Or excuse me, a -2 to get rid of it? I would add 2 positives. I'm going to add 2 positives to both sides. Because 2 positives and 2 negatives, we make 0 pairs. So these are going to cancel out, because 2 negatives and 2 positives are equal to 0. And then on the right side, I have 2 more positives to add to the one that I have. And so my answer, I still have isolated my variable. My triangle is equal to 1, 2, 3. Okay? So that's my answer. So my answer is x is equal to 3. And that's how you show it with a model, and we are going to be doing more models, especially with 2-step equations, but now we're going to go on and look at some without a model. So the next question, number 7, y minus 3 equals 4. I'm going to put a line down the center so I can keep my equation balanced as I go through, and it says y minus 3 is equal to 4. I need to isolate my variable. So what's the opposite of subtracting 3? Well, and think about what I did over here. I added 2 to get rid of the -2. So what would I do to get rid of -3? I would add +3. So I'm going to add +3 to both sides. What happens over here, this is going to cancel out. This is called the additive inverse property, where whatever positive you add to the same number of negatives, they cancel out. And so then I've isolated my variable. I have y is equal to 7. Okay, that's a one-step equation involving subtraction. And now we're going to do our check. That's right. Our check is y minus 3 equals 4. I'm going to put in 7 for my y. 7 minus 3 equals 4. Let's see if that's true. 4 is equal to 4, so it checks. All right, let's look at number 8. We have r minus 4 is equal to negative 2. So, again, I'm going to divide my two sides of my equation. I'm going to put a box around my variable to remind me what I'm trying to isolate or get by itself. And I have minus 4, so I undo subtracting 4 by adding 4 to both sides. When I do that, the negative 4 and the positive 4, remember the model, they're going to cancel out because they're zero pairs, additive inverse property. And then I have r is equal to negative 2 plus 4, which is 2. Now is my check. And for my check, I put in 2. For r, I'm just substituting down here. Minus 4, bringing down the equation, is equal to negative 2. Put this in my calculator. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 is equal to negative 2, and it checks. All right, one more before our word problem. We have negative 9 equals q minus 8. So my variable is q. How do I get rid of negative 8? By adding a positive 8. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. On the right side, cancels out. I'm left with q equals negative 1. So that's my answer. Negative 1 is equal to q. I'm going to do my check. And my check is negative 9 equals negative 1 minus 8. See if that's true. Negative 9 equals negative 9. That checks. And to get the negative 9, I'm just going to put in my calculator 1 negative minus 8. And I get negative 9. All right, again, if you need to pause the video at this time for the class so that they can get caught up, that would be great. But let's go ahead and look at number 10. This says if you decrease a number by 4, the result is negative 5. So if I decrease a number by 4, what am I doing? I'm subtracting. And I'm subtracting 4. I'm decreasing the number by 4. So I'm subtracting 4 from the number. Okay, it's right there in that order. Decrease a number by 4. The result, which would be equals to, is negative 5. All right? So now that we've written our equation, we're going to find the number, the value of n. So just like the others, I'm going to add 4. I'm going to undo the subtraction on the side with my variable. And then n is equal to negative 1. Okay? So now I'm going to plug this into my equation to do my check. And my check is negative 1 minus 4 equals negative 5. Okay, so I'm just putting negative 1 in for n. I'm just rewriting it over here. And if I do that, I get negative 5 equals negative 5. So I get a check. All right, so that's all we're going to do in the video today. So what you guys have, you have a two-sided worksheet, but we're only going to work on the front today. So your teacher's going to give you the worksheet. So you have 10 examples to look at. You have addition equations as well as subtraction. And you are going to solve them just like we did on the video, in the video you've just watched. And you are also going to do a check. You may use a calculator, but you are to show every step how you isolate the variable to get the answer. And I also want to see the check. You're going to get started and see how much you can get done today in class. This is the worksheet that you're going to be working on. And you have addition and subtraction equations. So I just want you to start working on the problems. I want you to notice that there are addition and subtraction. So like for the first one, n plus 23 equals 50. Our numbers are a little bit larger now, but that's okay. So I'm going to subtract, right? I'm going to isolate my variable. I'm adding 23. So how do I undo addition? By subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 23 from both sides. And then this cancels out. And I have n is equal to 27. So that's your first step, right? You're going to get your answer, and then you're going to do your check right underneath the equation, what you've solved. So I'm going to put in 27 for n. 27 plus 23 equals 50. I'm going to add 27 and 23. That is 50. 50 equals 50, and you're going to check it. Okay, so that's how you're going to start working. Just start working on the equations. We're just going to do this front sheet. We're going to do the back of it with multiplication and division tomorrow. We'll start working on that as we get into two-step equations. And that's it for today. Have a wonderful day. And I have two students that want to say goodbye to you. Bye. Miriam and Fatima helped me this evening. Have a great night.